Annie Johnson, welcome to In Session Film. We're here to talk about Anora and your wonderful makeup designs.
Oh,
Um,
thank you so much for having me.
I believe are already on their way to becoming iconic. I truly mean that. There's so much to talk about. And I was reading an interview with Sean Baker where he mentioned this, but basically, I mean, her makeup really is her armor. I mean, it really is, and it's the thing that he talked a lot about, Mikey Madison sort of using the hair and the makeup to get into character and sort of build the character. Can you talk about that and sort of how you viewed the character of Annie and her makeup?
Yeah, I mean, I had spent a really intense time with that script and pre-production, about a month and a half, just like breathing that script, planning every single look down for every single character. Um, and I really wanted the looks to portray her vulnerability throughout the movie, and and her makeup kind of degrades throughout, kind of just like her. um she starts out with, a full face of makeup, lashes. She uses, I think we had a conversation, Mikey and I, who was really involved in the process. I collaborated a lot with Mikey about Annie's look. We had talked a lot about like her lashes being Annie's security blanket. And the day after the home invasion scene, there's the scene where she washes her makeup off, the lashes come off, and there's kind of like that flip in makeup, in that scene in the movie, in her look. And after that, it's kind of just, we're using a lot of her real natural beauty, but I was still using a lot of makeup to kind of portray what was going on, how she was feeling, and the time and the space of everything that was going on in her life.
Mhm. Can you dig into that a little bit more? Like, how do you think that, what sort of changes did you make to the makeup to make it to bring out the natural beauty, but also sort of make show the exhaustion and sort of the emotional draining feeling that she has?
Yeah, so Mikey has amazing skin, and it was a little tricky, to kind of make her to figure out how to portray that, just because of how beautiful she is in real life, and she still is throughout that whole um makeup change. But uh that specifically, I I used, we made her a little more tired. We put more shadows in her face. It did help that we were working really, really long days, so I just like used what we had. Um, uh, I'm we, smudged her eyes. I There, at the period after the tussle in the club, I give her the scratches on her face. And in the beginning, I was a little hesitant. I didn't know, like, kind of how big to make them, or I was like, are these too big? Or but I really feel like they make an impact in kind of like her wounded spirit, and in how she's feeling in that time.
Yeah, and there's a quite a bit of bruising as well that I was going to ask you about. Can you talk about sort of designing again like a physical decay of her body that's reflecting what's going on inside
Yeah,
emotionally? That's
I'm
just
I'm glad you touched on that. It's so it's funny. So Mikey did all of her own stunts in the movie. Um and so in real life, she was just covered in bruises from the stunt work and the pole work and just of what was going on throughout filming. And we were working with really early pre-calls because I was just covering her body and body makeup. Um, so a lot of them I let show through because I think they worked. I think that her character would have some bruising with pole work and dancing. But it was tricky. I had to take a lot of continuity photos to get the bruising right, at naturally like some of the bruises during shooting would go away, and then I'd have to like go in and add those bruises. Um, so I it yeah, I was covering up bruises, taking out bruises, but she was covered in body makeup. And the tattoos too, we were adding the tattoos. So we were working with really early pre-calls to really like nail the hair and makeup.
You know what I think is so interesting, and I say this, I love makeup myself personally. It's like my favorite thing, my own personal armor. And I think it's interesting because all the women that we see in the film are obviously not women who have a lot of money, but they have to have a lot of, makeup for their job. And so like it reminded me of real life of sort of you don't have a big budget and you want to look the best that you can. And so I wonder like how that element played into the maybe the products that you chose or the way you designed your looks of like, they're clearly not going to be, using La Mer, right? Like you have to factor that into your design process.
So for the lashes, I specifically I wanted to use drugstore lashes. I went with Ardell lashes, just like um the the flared lashes. I thought they were amazing. I think they're a great drugstore brand lash that a lot of dancers wear. And I I thought that was a great choice. I that was one we specifically used for her that was, attainable.
Yeah, exactly. I think attainable is the perfect word because it did feel to me like all of these were looks that I could recreate or like somebody in Annie's position would be doing day to day for her job. I felt like that was very true to
Right.
life and
Yeah, and that was intentional. I really wanted her character to I wanted this character to feel accurate, I wanted it to be authentic to and respectful to sex workers everywhere. I wanted to um I was, could this character, is this a look that she could actually do at home by herself before she goes to work? When you see a film or a TV show and they show up with these elaborate looks, it's like, oh, they could never do that themselves,
exactly,
And
exactly.
that's also something I love about the way Sean works. It's like he's the real people, real looks, and even if that includes flaws, or I had a conversation with Sean before we started. He's like, I don't even want powder. I love shine on skin, and I love that. I love working with just realness. I think that's really cool.
And like Annie, she's the main character, obviously. She's the top girl at the club. How did that idea play into designing your other characters? Because you want them to have their moments as well and look good, but the idea is that she's the alluring, eye-catching one, and of course she is. She's stunning. So how do you sort of balance that with all the characters that you have?
So, so for the dancers specifically and the other sex workers, we had a conversation, like Diamond and the other characters in the club. We wanted them to come, they're actual, sex workers in real life. So we really loved their actual looks,
Mhm.
and they're actual actors as well. And we were like, we love your look. Show up with your actual look. So they were actually doing their own hair and makeup for the club. As far as like her friends in the movie go, we were working with their looks a little bit, but we really wanted the authenticity of the dancers to come through with their own looks that they brought. They just killed it.
Mm. Let's talk about the other characters. I mean, you mentioned there is like tattoos and things like that. Talk to me about designing the other cast and crew, and then I wanted to, along those lines, bring up Yvonne's mom because I think it's so interesting when Annie meets her because she's sort of at the lowest of the low, and in comes this polished, very rich, like very done up woman off her private plane. So how do our supporting characters really come into play, and how did you design looks for all of them?
Yeah, I love that you brought up the mom. When I first read that character, the immediate character that I thought of that I kind of based that off of, that polished look, was the mother in the 1996 remake of Romeo and Juliet. Um, and I pulled up a photo and I was like, I think this is just like I could work with this look, just like polished and just like, really rich with status. So that was kind of a look I based that off of. I had a lot of help from our HMU swing, Callie Fillion. And she also stepped in to help me with the makeup with the mother, and she really did a wonderful job with that and nailed that. So that was amazing.
Speaking of nails, can we talk about Annie's nails for a second? Because she has the most amazing nails, and I just wondered how you made that choice of like,
Yeah, so actually I I was given the job of coming up with kind of they were like, do you have looks in mind for everybody's nails? So I was coming up with boards of nails. And originally I had something completely different in mind for Annie's nails, something like a little bit just plain. I think they had just like some single rhinestones on them. I showed them to Mikey. Um, we had her nails done throughout shooting at Akiko Nails in the East Village. They did such an amazing job. But Mikey went to get her nails done, and last minute, she came back with those butterfly nails. So that was a personal choice on Mikey's that was her choice. And I'm so glad she picked those nails. I mean, they just fall in line with that character. They stand out. They're such a statement, they worked wonderfully. And it's so much better than the ones that I had in mind.
I love talking to makeup artists because they'll tell me about some random detail that they spent an hour on that I had no idea or could even consider. And so I wonder, like, did you have something like that on Anora? Just something that you put a lot of thought into that is maybe a detail, even something like the nails that maybe most people would not notice offhand.
Well, so I would say like in pre-production in that month and a half, uh Sean had come to me with the idea. He knew he wanted the back of the thigh tattoos.
Mm.
So I was throwing some design ideas. We were up back and forth off of each other, and we decided on the bows. So I had never actually transferred tattoos by myself before. So I was like, I bought a Xerox printer, like a $700 Xerox printer. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna teach myself how to do this. I'm gonna make these bow tattoos for this whole movie. And originally, I had my brother come up with a design, and it turns out he didn't have an iPad to make the design, so we went with another artist to make that design, and we had them sent out to Tinsley Transfers, who actually sent us hundreds and hundreds of tattoo transfers. um, that we used throughout shooting. And I mean, we went through hundreds of those tattoos on the back of her legs. We had to switch them out, take them on and off, sometimes 4 or 5 times a day, just because of the nature of the film, because of the lap dancing. They would rub off. Sometimes they would rub off on the costumes, on the bed. You know, everything like that. So it was a lot of upkeep. And it was something that if a viewer saw, you know, it would look bad. So I knew I really had to stay on top of it, and it was really time consuming. But you know, when you watch the film, it's kind of like an afterthought, and it's I love that it came out that way. I love that it's just kind of in the background, and but it's something that like took up so much time, and you know that I'll always be like, oh, the bow tattoos.
I love
And
that.
I still have hundreds, you know.
Have them as like party favors in the future. These are
Wow.
my iconic boat tattoos from Anora. Um, I was lost my question there for a second. Well, let me ask you this. So you've done a lot of interviews, been asked a lot of questions. Do you feel like maybe there's an aspect of the film that you want to discuss that I haven't asked you about, or just
Um, I mean, it was it was Anora was just such a turning for point for me, you know, in my career. It it truly made me fall in love with doing makeup again. You know, it sparked this creativity in me that, you know, I kind of felt was sort of dying. And I just have this renewed energy for my craft. And Sean Baker really put puts a lot of trust in his department heads. He in his whole crew, and he's so amazing to work with and collaborate with. And um we all became a family on that set. And you know, it's just we're having the best time, you know, experiencing all of this together, and it's just been such a fun journey.
well, that sounds like a perfect ending to our interview, but I'm nosy, so I'm gonna ask you one more question,
Right.
which is I know Housewives was an inspiration for you guys. You mentioned Romeo and Juliet. I wonder how many other inspirations, sort of, if I was creating like an Anora mood board, what else would be?
Let's see. You know, originally there was uh Sean came to me at the beginning of the film for an original look, for the original look for Annie. Um, it was like a thick black eyeliner. Um, and I told Sean, I was like, we're not doing that. I was like, just she has such a unique shape to her eyes. We're gonna lose our eyes on you know, screen if we do that. I think, you know, and we knew the hair was gonna be the focal point. I was like, I think we should tone down the eyeliner, give her something more attainable, that she can do herself. And you know, he's so open to that collaboration process, and he was like, totally, let's try it. And so I think like originally like the films from the 70s and that kind of like look, it was kind of based off of that, and we just kind of worked the wing and that thing, that whole look
Mm.
off of an original idea that he had.
Well, the whole movie is such a vibe, and it's a vibe that I love. I told Justine, I said it's my current front runner for Best Picture. I'm obsessed with it. I literally had a friend call me the other day, and she said, I know there's a lot going on, and I just need to talk to you about Anora. So that's what we did. So I think this movie is just bringing people a lot of joy, or maybe not even joy is not the right word, but is captivating. And part of it is due to your work. And thank you so much for talking to me about it.
We need all the joy we can right
Yeah.
now. Great.
Um, if you think of anything else that you want to talk about, let me know. I always love to hear from you, and I wish you luck. And I love hearing that you have a renewed spark, and I hope that leads to like 1,000 more wonderful things. So.
Thank you so much. This was really great.